This is a true story of Sergeant Larry Thomas, a soldier that found himself lost in the Iraqi desert. This is the account of what happened. Stories are verified through the National Archives Records Center, St. Louis, Missouri. This is the true story of Sergeant Larry Thomas, a Gulf War veteran who was lost a full day in the Iraq desert after getting lost on his way to battalion to deliver an S2 message and to check on radio repairs that was to have been received by the battalion communications shop. After setting out near dusk, the sky was hazy with dust from vehicles that was traveling afar off to some unknown destination. I grabbed just my helmet and I left my M16 under my sleeping bag, thinking I would return shortly. I took my gas mask as we were required to have it on at all times. So I jumped in the Hummer and headed towards the lights that I thought was the battalion built up. I drove and I drove and I drove, never reaching the battalion camp I had just seen at dusk as I left out. I kept driving towards this light that seemed to be a long ways off, so I kept driving. At least an half hour has passed, and I'm still driving. I never reached my destination. I was so lost. I was miles away from where I started. Where the hell am I? I thought. I had no map and no damn clue where I was. So I kept driving. Surely I would see someone, some America unit out here. I kept driving way into the night, scared, crying, and praying that I see someone. I came up on this camp in the early hours in the morning. As I drove slowly through this unknown campsite, I noticed a track vehicle that I didn't recognize, so I hit the gas. In the Hummer and drove fast through their camp. I heard yelling, but I did not stop. I kept driving, scared out of my mind. When I got some distance away from that location, I stopped the Hummer and got out to look at the vehicle. I could see that I was dragging tents and camouflage nets that had stuck to the vehicle. I thought, oh, Lord, I hope I didn't kill anyone. I was scared and I had to get the hell out of that camp. After dislodging the tent and nets from my Hummer, I started it up, put it in drive, and hit the gas. I kept driving for what seemed like hours. I had no clue where I was. I don't see any American soldiers anywhere. I kept driving and came upon two sand-colored Hummers that was perched atop of a high sand dune. I pulled up beside them and turned off my vehicle. I was too scared to approach whoever was sitting or sleeping in the Hummers next to me. So I went to sleep. I was tired and exhausted, sore and mentally unstable. I woke up to an early sunrise and noticed that the two Hummers that was parked next to me last night was now gone. How long have I been sitting here alone? When did they leave? I didn't hear a vehicle start up last night. I must have been in a deep, deep sleep. So I started up the Hummer and started driving, not knowing where the hell I was going. I just kept driving. In the distance, way off, I see a dust trail, I think, so I started driving towards the dust trail. Who could it be? Americans or Iraqis? At this point, I was going to at least see who this convoy was, so I kept driving towards that dust trail. After about what seemed to be an hour or so, I saw it was a transportation unit and it was an American unit. I headed towards the lead vehicle to head it off. I was turning my headlights on and off to get their attention. It was about noontime when I reached and stopped the lead vehicle. I approached the captain, saluted, and stated that I was Sergeant Larry Thomas from Headquarters Battery, 18th Field Artillery, and sir, I am separated from my unit. I got lost a day ago after I left my unit headed to battalion to check on equipment repairs. Can you please help me to get back to my unit? The captain stated that he would look up my unit and send a radio message to get their grid location. After some radio chatter for about 20 minutes, I had my information to get back to my unit. I shot an azimuth from where the convoy was back to my unit's location. I thanked the captain with tears in my eyes for his help. I was so thankful and got back into my Hummer and headed towards my unit, according to the map that was given me. I drove for 4 hours before I could see in the distance my unit. I kept driving, and I noticed that it was lunchtime and they were in the chow line as noon had come and gone. I pulled up behind my tent and shut the Hummer off and just sat there, looking crazy and lost. How could this have happened to me? Surely the Lord was riding with me that night. I was crying out so. Thank you, Jesus, for saving me, I cried, tears flowing down my dusty face. weeping out loud that I made it back without a scratch, without being captured, without being killed. I composed myself and wiped my face with the end of my t-shirt. I was looking bad, like I'd been running for my life, all dusty and filthy from the night before. I got out of the Hummer and went into the tent and sat on my cot. I felt my weapon underneath me, sticking me in my butt. I pulled it from my sleeping bag. So I took my weapon and headed towards the chow line. As I approached, Specialist Weeks said, "Sergeant Thomas, where the hell you been?" Loudly, so everyone could hear, I said out loud, "I was lost in the desert last night and I'm just getting back." These fools all laughed, so I said angrily, "Look, motherfuckers, if you don't believe me, go look at that back of my Hummer, shit thrown everywhere. Hell, some of the equipment might be missing. I didn't know and didn't care at that moment. So I grabbed some shitty food and went with SPC Weeks to that back of my Hummer. He said, 'Shit, man, what the fuck happened?' And stated, 'I told you my dumbass went to battalion to pick up them repaired radios, but I never made it. The light that I thought was battalion was not battalion. I've been driving all through the night to try to get back here before our unit moved closer to Kuwait.' I told him, 'Man, I have never been so scared in my life.' With tears in my eyes, SPC Week knew I was serious then, and he said, 'Damn, man.' We went into our commo tent. I sat on my cot, just staring into space. I got up, pulled off them dirty-ass clothes, and went to take a cold shower. Thank God, not a lot was going on in the camp for us. Communications was working well throughout our campsite. I showered, got dressed, and sat on my cot, thinking about home and why the hell have I not received a care package from my wife. No mail in days from this woman, probably out spending my cash. I felt sad and betrayed, like most of the married soldiers in this tent, wondering who is fucking my wife, when mail and the care packages slow down or stop altogether. Soldier No Jody has moved in. I laid down on my cot to take a long, deserved nap. Hell, I went to sleep. The next morning, I got up early light to take inventory of the equipment I know was on the back off my Hummer. The safe was open. I hope no CEOIs flew out. If so, I would end up in prison if the enemy got a hold of them. But to my surprise, after inventory, none of the important items was missing. A bruised ego, I felt. I got lost in the desert and no one believes me. What the fuck now? Why the fuck am I here? Sitting around in this fucking hot desert waiting for a war to happen, my woman in the States, fucking some other man, all this shit. We finally got our movement orders, and what do you know, it's after midnight. You can always count on the Army to mess up a good night's sleep. Formation was called to issue directives. All that was left to do was to break down the tent and load up the equipment and convoy to the next location, wherever the hell that is. Morale was high, and so was I on these Betty cigarettes we get from the locales. They give you a buzz just enough to be hyper and excited to be shot at by the enemy. We headed out of the compound. It was around 1:30 in the morning when we finally got underway. We drove all through the night, stopping only for a half-hour breaks so troops can get out of their cramped war machines and stretch their legs, get water, use the bathroom, and things of that nature. I switched with my driver, SPC Anthony Holly, so he could get some shut-eye. He had been driving for about 3 hours since we left camp. We started up again driving towards where we would set up and fight the Iraqi army. Was I scared? Yes. Was I afraid of gunfire? No. For some damn reason, I was expecting the worst. I was lost in the desert before all this shit. Now I'm headed into possibly a fight with the Iraqi Republican Guard. What's there to be scared of? Silly-ass thoughts going through my mind. At daybreak, we were somewhere deep in the Saudi Arabian desert. It was beautiful out here this morning. Surreal. Our breakfast was good old MREs. No hot meals while on the move. Grab your meal, get back on your vehicle, and let's keep moving. We drove 300 miles or so, according to our odometer, way out here in this damn desert. We stopped and everyone got off their war machines. We heard B-52 bombers overhead, about 20 of them streaking across the sky, leaving trails that seems like dust from where I'm standing. We all cheered loudly, and soldiers saying all manner of things coming out their mouths. We are proud warriors, strong, eager for battle, eager for what the unknown will bring us. We are American soldiers, the best our country has to offer. After some more driving, we reached our destination. A mandatory formation was called, and soldiers gather information to hear our updated orders for this war. We were all given our locations to set up, finally after driving what seemed like forever to get here. For my squad, our mission is simple: set up intercommunications to the Tactical Operating Center, the First Sergeant Tent, S2, S3, maintenance, and get the switchboard set up and operational, run communication wire to guard posts and the outer areas that needs Acamo phones. We were good and quick at what we did, professional soldiers preparing for war and death. Our longest communication line was to battalion. Crazy. It was over 3 miles away from us, but we had to run this line. It's the unknown link of communication within the area of operation. This line has to be run from our location to battalion. Hooked to the switchboard, we buried it deep all the way because of Abrams M1 tanks that are in the area, supporting us because you don't want a line to be cut in the middle of the night. If so, we have to go out and repair it no matter what time it is, day or night. Soldiers took TA-312s, tactical phones out to every guard post. By the time we were done, the sun was way up and beeping down on us. Hot, pissed, wanting to go home. By the time we were finished running all the required communication lines, it was about chow time. And this time we would get our first hot meal of the day. Great. I'm freaking starving at this point, and so is my soldiers. I suggested that they go get in line before it gets too long. We can set up our tent after we all eat. Every soldier enjoyed baked chicken and mashed potatoes, salad, bread. We are the best fed army in the world. After our belly was full, we set up our sleeping quarters, and at the same time, some of our soldiers was running the last communication line of the day to our tent so they could contact us if communications goes down anywhere in the camp. The problem with living in the desert is that you cannot go outside your tent and take a piss. It's unsanitary. When we do that, it dries up, and if you get hit with a sandstorm, it blows back in the living area, or worse, you breathe it in. It's just not healthy. So the next day, we given instructions to build a huge male stand-up area. We literally had to go out during the day to find rocks, to bring back to camp, put them in this area where long white tubes was dug in the ground. Here you stand, whip it out and piss down this tube so the urine goes underground. They had us doing all kinds of weird things over there. We drove around for hours, looking for rocks to build this thing. We were to remain at this location for months until the actual war started. We entertained ourselves by playing cards. We had a volleyball net set up. We built a homemade basketball court. Commander had wood sent in, and we built it in the freaking desert. A basketball court. Can you believe it? When it was done, it was packed every day with soldiers making the best of this war, being away from home, their loved ones and all. Some soldiers had a tough time coping, but we help each other, look out for each other, and protect each other. That is what soldiers do. We bond, we fight, and hopefully, we win. After days at this location, we were told that we're waiting for all the other commands to get into battle position. It took a while for this to happen. In the meantime, we trained, set up chemical detection equipment around our perimeter. Showers finally arrived, and we were glad of that. We had 6 showers for the whole company. Heck, better than no showers at all. But the officers had put heating elements in their water, so their water would be nice and hot coming out. When we found this out, we would sneak into their showers and use them without permission. What the hell? We're soldiers too. Even in war, some shady shit goes on within the camp. One officer was rude and thinks he is above everyone else, so we showed him who not to mess with. Some soldiers caught a big black hairy scorpion. We put it in a box for later use, and we know just what to do with him. A day or so went by, and we decided to put our little revenge act into play against our asshole commander. You think you better than us? We'll show your ass. Late one night, we poured strawberry Kool-Aid into the shower water of the officers, about 10 packs of that shit, and some even pissed in their shower tank, which held the water on top, which flowed down on the person taking the shower. One day, when our commander was at the TOC, we got a call from one of our team members who were on switchboard duty at the TOC. Hey! He cried. "Captain Nguyen is over here," he stated. We took that big scorpion over to our commander's tent and put it in his sleeping bag and zipped it up. Later on that night, we heard his ass screaming like a bitch. "It's in my bag!" he yelled. No one came to his aid, that I know of. It didn't sting him. He was lucky this time. But from that day forward, he was the nicest captain we've met. I guess he got the picture. Don't try to screw over your soldiers. We will retaliate. The convoy was long, about 15 Hummers, filled with soldiers, heading in towards Kuwait, not knowing what we would see when we got there, but knowing we would see dead Iraqi soldiers for sure. As we drove, the word came out to watch for mines that have possibly been played down by the Iraqi army. That was scary. I hope we don't run over any. The fear was there, strong. As we drove, a Hummer broke convoy formation and drove past up at a high rate of speed. It was one of our majors headed to the front of the convoy, but we passed us on the left side. We heard a loud boom. That fool ran over a mine, blew the front of his Hummer off, threw both from the vehicle. We all stopped to assist and see. The major was not hurt bad, and the driver was not hurt, thank God. We kept moving towards Kuwait. Now in the distance, we could see the black smoke for the oil fields, and smoke from a convoy for vehicles that was trying to get out of Kuwait, known as the Road of Death. As we got closer, it seemed like light rain was falling on us, but after further downpour, we noticed it was light oil raining down on us. So I instructed my soldiers to wet a t-shirt and wrap it round your nose and mouth to try to filter some of the falling misty oil. We kept driving. Even as the oil falling got a little thicker, some soldiers was throwing up as they had ingested some of the falling oil. I, too, was throwing up some. We got to the area of our artillery impacts and was prepared for what we saw. Iraqi soldiers, burned up in their vehicles. Some looked like they were trying to get out, but was burned to death in place. Some Iraqi soldiers was torn to pieces, body parts everywhere, guts, arms, heads blown off. It was a horrible sight to see for these young soldiers of mine. I could see the pain on their faces. There was no one alive. So we got the hell out of there the same way we came in. We did not go all the way to Kuwait, as that was not our orders. Our orders were to go in and access the damage we did in an hours-long artillery barrage. We came, we saw, we prayed. And now that I know on that day some of our soldier got cancer and didn't even know it, until years later after that war, including me, was diagnosis with stage 3 lymphoma cancer. A huge glob of the shit when I seen my CT scan. Cancer from the burn fields that Saddam Hussein set on fire because he knew his ass was beaten by the best damn army in the world. This is the price we pay for freedom. Some gave it their all. As we were driving back to our campsite, having just seen the most disturbing things our eyes have ever seen, lives changed forever. Some soldiers still throwing up on the way back. Our uniforms drenched in oil from the burning oil wells Saddam Hussein set on fire as he retreated. Soldiers was quiet, except the ones throwing up, in deep thought of what's to come of this, not knowing the full measure of what just happened to us. But we are soldiers. We signed up to give our lives for this country on the battlefield or years later, when a health problem arise from your service in this war. I pray these sacrifices the soldiers made is appreciated. I know I have profound respect for these soldiers. They performed above the call of duty during this war. We got back to camp and formation was called to receive an after-actions report from our commander. After receiving the report, we went back to our tents to get out of these oil-soaked uniforms, take a shower at some point, and reflect on what the hell just happened to us. We remained at this campsite until the war was over. 100 hours it took to defeat Saddam Hussein after the first shot was fired in this war. 100 hours and some soldiers got cancer and didn't even know it. 100 hours it took to change some soldiers' lives forever. We sat there in that camp for a week until we got the word that the war is over. Units are preparing to pack up and head back to the docks where the vehicles are loaded for the return to the world. The USA. That was the best news any soldier could get. This madness is over. I survived somehow. Being lost a full night. I survived that with the help of the Lord. Being shot at. I survived that. I survived this war. Now it's time to go home, to what I don't know. My wife have stopped sending care packages. I have not received any mail in weeks. Actually, I'm feeling abandoned by my wife. I don't know what to expect after I hit the States. Do I have a marriage left? After winding down and have time to relax, me and Specialist Holly went to the movie tent that was set up to watch Rambo on VHS. Someone sent the major. We love to watch movies. It breaks up the thoughts going through your head for a while. As the movie tent began to fill with other soldiers eager to watch the Rambo movie, we just sat and talked about what we seen on that mission to Kuwait today, as we accessed the damage we did. The major came in to pop in the video and everyone was excited. He popped in that tape and the movie started like a regular movie for a few minutes. Then the screen just changed to a woman and two men in bed with masks over their faces. The woman did not have on a mask, but she was naked along with the men laying next to her. We didn't know what was going on, but turned out it was the major's wife in the States cheating on him. He got mad, overturned the TV. Soldiers was running to get out the tent because he had a weapon on his side. Hell, soldiers was scared and didn't know what he would do. Talk about messed up. His wife in bed and everyone in that tent waiting for a Rambo movie saw his wife naked. I had to wonder, is my wife doing the same thing or worse? Is she cheating on me while I'm over here serving my country, running for my damn life over here? I dread to think of it, but I will see when I get back home. After we got the orders to move back to base, which is the docks in Saudi Arabia, it took days to load up our equipment for the long ride back. As we departed the camp, some soldiers began to leave behind equipment. Some of our soldiers left behind tents, camouflage nets, and things they did not want to carry back. As the convoy was underway, you could see other soldiers dumping equipment off their vehicles as we drove the path back to base. No one said anything. It's part of war. It took days for us to drive back to base. Some vehicles broke down and were left, on fire, of course. Then we got word that Saddam Hussein was captured in a hole somewhere. Carrying $700,000, he was dragging that money around. It was good news to my men. We also got word the engineers, was finding bunkers full of gold and money the Iraqi army took from Kuwait and hid it in the desert. Some soldiers have all the luck, but I was not about to take any chances of trying to take a souvenir from this war. I don't want shit, but to go home to what's left of my home after this damn war. Some soldiers were caught taking weapons they found back, but that would get you in serious trouble. Some soldiers found out the hard way after we got back to base. I had to go around with Specialist Holly to collect all CEOIs as I am the ComSec custodian for the battalion. After I collect all and confirm receipt that I have them, now I must destroy them with fire. I have to burn all these CEOI books that are classified. I had a team go around to all vehicles and erase the codes from the radios, clear them out. I had to have all personnel turn in their night vision goggles. They have to be accounted for and secured in the vault, along with all ComSec equipment. I took my job very serious, and I could go to prison handling this type of equipment. We turned in all M16s to the armory, inventoried all communication equipment, and give an after-actions report to the commander, that all is secure and accounted for. After staying up late and burning all the ComSec books, I finally can relax a minute. I got some hot chow and headed back to my sleeping area. The food they cook in base camp is better, they contract the Saudis to feed us, and they did a great job of that. Relaxing, some playing pool, some playing cards, but all waiting for that flight off this sand. The next day we loaded all the vehicles on the huge ships for the ride back home. It took hours for this to be completed. After all the vehicles are loaded and secure, we can just wait it out. The day came for us to get on that huge plane and fly the 13 hours back to American soil. We loaded up on the plane, entered the cabin, sat down in that seat and cried joys of relief. I am going home. Finally, I am going home. As we sat in our seat, the plane taxied down the runway and lifted off. I was so glad to see that sand leave my sight for good. I felt we did a good job. We didn't lose one soldier. We brought those young men back home to their families. It felt good. The flight was long, tiresome, but yet pleasing. After hours of flying, we flew into Charleston, South Carolina. As the plane approached the city, we could see the city lights. Chill bumps went over my skin. Will there be someone to greet me? I wondered. My mother, perhaps? Sisters or brothers? They know I'm coming home. After we landed and taxied to the terminal, we could see people with flags, signs, banners, and waving American flags, cheering with joy for the soldiers. When the plane stopped and the seatbelt sign went off, after a greeting from the crew and pilots of the plane, we got up, grabbed our gear, and headed for the exits. As we exited the plane, going down the stairs, I was looking for a familiar face in the crowd but found none. People were greeting me with welcome home and some hugs, but none of my family was there. My heart was broken. I was crying uncontrollably. It hurt not to have them greet me. It hurt so bad. We went to the terminal and waited for our ride back to base. After we got back to our base, we waited for the equipment to arrive from Saudi Arabia. Some soldiers took leave if they were married. I took leave the next day, rented a car to drive home. I finally got to my apartment door. It was about 3 a.m. in the morning. My wife's car was outside, so I knew her ass was home. I knocked on the door, no answer. I knocked harder. I guess my wife didn't bother to look through the peephole. She just opened the door, saw it was me, and ran down the hallway in her undies. I was home, and she was doing some vile crap. So I opened the apartment door, went in, turned on the lights, and there was a suitcase on the couch with a man's clothing in it. I picked it up, threw that shit off the third-floor balcony. I went in the kitchen, and on the kitchen table was 2 big bags of marijuana. I took both bags, went into the bathroom, and flushed that shit down the toilet, no doubt bought with my damn money. Then I thought I heard someone moving in a closet. I opened them up, and there was a dude, just standing there looking scared as shit. I grabbed him by the neck and dragged him to the front door and threw his skinny ass out my apartment. I saw his shoes and threw them off the balcony as well. I was pissed. After a few minutes in the apartment, I left and said, fuck it. Got in my car and found a cheap motel to stay in. The next day I got up and her sister contacted me and told me she had him living in my home for a long time. I was hurt and wanted to hurt someone. I held my composure and went and drove the few hours back to my base. Even though I had a 15-day pass, I was sad and unforgiving. That's why the care packages stop. The letters stop. Your ass back here cheating while I'm over there fighting a stupid-ass war. That week I filed for divorce. I got back to base, went upstairs and laid on my bed, crying that I have lost everything in this war. Fast forward to 2024, here I am with stage 3 lymphoma cancer, dying from a war that was a lie. Master Sergeant Dan Wright passed in 2015 from the same cancer. Here we both worked at Elbit System of America, building Apache mission processors for 14 years. Rest in peace, Dan.